Mark is standing in the grocery store aisle, muttering to himself, "Okay, I need milk. Did I already get bread? Wait, where did I put my list?" A stranger walks by and gives him that look, the one that says, "Is this guy okay?" Mark doesn't care anymore. He's been talking to himself his entire life, out loud, in public, constantly. And here's the thing, his brain isn't broken. It's actually working better than most people's. If you talk to yourself, you're about to learn why your brain does this, and why it's a sign of intelligence, not instability. Scientists call it private speech, and your brain uses it to think better than silent thinking ever could. When Mark talks out loud, his brain activates 3 different areas at once. The part that controls speaking gets active, the part that hears sound processes his own voice, and the part that understands meaning interprets what he just said. He's creating a complete loop that makes thoughts stick way stronger. Silent thinking only uses 1 or 2 brain areas. Self-talk uses multiple parts working together. Mark isn't scattering his thoughts, he's making them stronger. Researchers tested this directly. Half the people talked themselves through hard tasks out loud. The other half worked quietly. The talkers made fewer mistakes, finished faster, and solved problems better. And if you think about it, this makes sense. Watch any 4-year-old playing alone and they're talking non-stop. Now, the car goes up the ramp. Okay, now it crashes. Now we need to fix it. They're teaching their brains how to plan by talking out loud. Society just told most of us to stop because it looks weird. Mark never stopped. That's an advantage he kept from childhood that most adults gave up for no good reason. Now let's talk about what happens when Mark gets stressed, because this is where it gets really useful. He's nervous about a presentation. His heart's pounding, so he talks himself through it. Okay, this is just nerves. It's not dangerous. You've done presentations before. But here's where it gets interesting. Research shows that talking to yourself using your own name works better than saying I. When Mark says Mark can handle this instead of I can handle this, his brain processes it differently. Using your name creates distance from the panic. It feels less like you're drowning in worry and more like you're getting advice from a friend. Your brain shifts to calmer, more logical pathways instead of emotional, panicky ones. Mark is basically being his own therapist in real time. People who do this handle stress better and bounce back from bad situations faster. This also helps with memory in ways most people don't realize. Mark needs to remember a phone number. He says it out loud a few times while walking to write it down. His brain creates 2 different memories at once. One of saying the number, another of hearing himself say it. That's 2 ways to remember instead of just 1. People who read out loud remember information way better than people who read silently. This is why teachers tell kids to talk through math problems. It literally helps learning work better in the brain. But here's where things get painful for people like Mark, and where most people get it completely wrong. Mark walks past a homeless person on the street who's talking loudly to themselves, having full conversations with people who aren't there, arguing with someone invisible, responding to voices only they can hear. Here's what's actually happening. That person's brain chemistry is seriously damaged. In schizophrenia, the brain produces way too much of certain chemicals in the wrong places. This makes the brain create voices that feel totally real but don't exist. They hear voices they didn't make up, get commands they don't want, have conversations that feel like they're coming from outside their own head, or living on the streets itself damaged their brain. Constant fear, terrible things happening to you, never sleeping properly, not eating enough, being completely alone. All of this changes the physical structure of your brain. Parts shrink. Other parts get damaged. The brain produces jumbled speech because it's been traumatized beyond what it can handle. That's a medical problem. A brain that desperately needs help, not people crossing the street to avoid them. Mark's talking is the complete opposite. He's choosing to say his own thoughts out loud to help his brain work better. He knows it's his own voice. He controls when it happens. He can stop whenever he wants. The thoughts are his, organized by his own mind, helping him get things done. But most people see both of them talking to themselves on the street and think they're the same thing. That ignorance hurts everyone. It makes people judge Mark for using a tool that helps him. And it makes people ignore someone experiencing a mental health crisis who desperately needs treatment. So let's talk about what Mark's self-talk actually does for his focus, because this is where it becomes like a superpower. Mark is working on something complicated. He talks himself through each step. Okay, check these numbers first, then compare them to last month. If something doesn't match, mark it. Talking prevents your mind from wandering in ways that silent focus can't. When you're working quietly, your brain drifts off without you noticing until you've wasted 5 minutes thinking about lunch. When you're talking, you stay aware of what you're thinking. Athletes use this exact technique. Tennis players who talk through their serve are more consistent. Basketball players who talk to themselves make more free throws. This isn't superstition, it's brain science. The same thing happens when Mark has to make big decisions. He debates with himself out loud when choosing between 2 job offers. He talks through the good and bad of each one. Silent thinking gets stuck in circles, worrying about the same thing over and over, but talking has to go in order. You can only say one thing at a time, which forces your brain to organize thoughts in a logical line instead of a messy tangle. Now, here's where people usually get it backwards about Mark. They see him talking to himself and assume he must be lonely, that he has nobody else to talk to. It's the opposite. He talks to himself because his brain works better that way. Then people think he's weird. Then they avoid him. Then he ends up lonely because people judged him, not because he was lonely to begin with. The talking came first. The loneliness is what other people's judgment created. Studies found that people who talk to themselves have totally normal friendships. They just also talk to themselves because it helps. And here's something beautiful about what's really happening when Mark talks to himself. When he tells himself, "You can do this," or calms himself with, "It's going to be okay." He's giving himself support that most people only get from others. Research shows that people who talk kindly to themselves have less depression, handle hard times better, and feel better about themselves than people who stay silent or beat themselves up mentally. Mark isn't replacing friends. He's giving his brain the outside support it needs to work at its best. Over the years, Mark figured out how to handle the social side of all this. Alone at home, talk about whatever. In the car, say the whole day's plan out loud, working on something hard, talk through every step. In a meeting, keep it quiet. This isn't hiding who he is, it's being socially smart. His brain switches between talking out loud and thinking silently based on what the situation needs. Drop a comment if you talk to yourself too. I want to hear your stories.